Hey, this is Steven from Chelsea Grin, and you're listening to Vulgar Display of Podcast.
Welcome to the Vulgar Display of Podcast, live from the Barn Studio. Got Chad and Twan here. What's up, bud?
How's it going?
Got a special guest online. We have Steven from Chelsea Grin.
How's it going?
Steven, how are you?
How's it going, everybody? Sorry to cut you off. I was just eager to say hi.
You're excited to be here, and we're excited to have you.
Yeah, stoked.
Where you at right now? You guys at home?
Yeah, we're in Salt Lake right now. We all linked up to rehearse for a show we have in Dallas, Monster Mosh. So yeah, we're all together here. Well, not in the room, but in Salt Lake City.
Monster Mosh. I haven't heard of that. Tell us about that.
So it's I believe it's the first year back. Monster Mosh, I think, was around a little while ago, some years ago, and this year we're headlining. Like Moths to Flames is playing. Woe Is Me is doing like a reunion show. Close Your Eyes is doing a reunion show. It's just a lot of bands. I could spend this whole entire interview listing the bands on the chest.
There's a bunch of them, huh?
Yeah. It'll be cool though in Dallas. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, one of my recent favorites, Signs of the Swarm, are on there. Looks like.
Yeah, they're on there too. Yeah. Stoked to catch those guys. I don't think I've seen them yet.
You guys play a lot of festivals. Do you guys like to play festivals?
It's hard to say. I mean, I like playing any show, really. Festivals are just like a big deviation from the norm for us. Like, it's not your average day on tour. It's a lot of bands. It's a lot of logistics. It's a lot of waking up early and like, if this is like a club show, it's in a venue, indoors. So like these big outdoor festivals they're an exhausting day, but they're fun for sure.
Sometimes it's when you go to those, it's like that as well. It's a long day at times. And it seems like when you're done with it, you're a little bit tired.
I couldn't imagine, like, this is no slight to anybody, but like attending a festival takes some serious, like, I don't know. It takes a combination of things. You got to be willing to go through the shit for a little bit, for a full day or two.
Hey, we're excited. You have a new album coming out, Suffer in Hell. We've released a couple singles already, and we've been digging on them.
Cool.
Tell us about this album. Tell us about Suffer in Hell.
So the new album, it's part of a double album. This first half, Suffer in Hell, is coming out November 11th, and it's our first album release in over 4 years now. Our last album came out in July of 2018, so we're stoked to finally have something coming out. This one is, the double album. It's not like we have a heavy side or a light side or a side and a B side. It's just, in total 16 tracks of intensity. So a lot of what I say for Suffer in Hell goes for Suffer in Heaven as well. It's really a diverse, record. And I'm trying to say all this without sounding like arrogant about it. We just really tried to make it span across the genre of metal as much as we could. And so there's, our classic Chelsea Grin sound in there. There's, big death metal influence. There's black metal influence. There's a lot of slamming going on. There's all sorts of influence drawn from across the genre. So, I think it's going to be a cool journey for people to listen to it and go from one track where they get their face smashed in to another one where they just then get it melted off with speed, and then the next one slows way down. It's kind of a wild ride.
There's a lot of dynamic range in there.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. And that was kind of like a gamble we took, not so much like intentionally. It's just when we when we got to the studio and all was said and done, we were like, dang, this is a lot of like crazy songs from a lot of different influences. So it's definitely a roller coaster.
So, Steve, can we talk about Forever Bloom for a second?
Of course.
Obviously, the great Trevor from Black Dahlia is a guest vocalist on there. How did that come about? How was it, working with Trevor, and how did that all come about for you guys?
I mean, Trevor was just like such a giving, easygoing, excited dude. I originally hit him up to do this spot, and he got back instantly and was eager and excited to be a part of it. I think he just loved, putting his talent out there in the world. And I think he was excited about doing it for kind of a little bit different of a band. I mean, he's done features for like deathcore artists before, but, he was stoked to like scream over a breakdown. Mm-hmm. It was a little different, and so he was just kind of, he was pumped. It was really cool, and he was so gracious about it, and just like, instant willingness. It was just a breeze, and the whole process was easy and simple, and sometimes features aren't quite so easy or simple, but this one was amazing. We just are really grateful to have had him on the track. I mean, he's been a big hero of all of ours, so to have had him on there was sort of like a bucket list thing.
Yeah, there's probably no bigger pillar for extreme music than Trevor.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of the center of the universe when it comes to understanding and caring about metal and whatnot. He was the best of all of us, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that was a huge loss to the metal world. I saw a recent video on YouTube in an interview that you did where you kind of opened up about your own mental health struggles.
Yeah.
And I have a little bit of a mental health background, so I always appreciate, especially when guys are pretty open about some of the struggles they had, because I feel like it's an important thing for guys to talk about and mm-hmm. to help with that conversation so that we are having more. So kudos to you for doing that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of opening up. I think even sometimes too much. Like I spent a lot of time sort of bottling stuff up, and I grew up with a lot of like mental struggles. And one day I just realized you kind of have to share this with the world. Not like I was still young, and just realized that opening up about things is so much easier than holding it in. And it's therapeutic, even just to share my experience with people, even outside of a therapy setting. So I was happy, and always will be happy, to kind of show people that side and commiserate with people. It's all about community out here. So
we applaud you for that. Here we even have the sound effect.
I take a bow through the phone.
And you actually, I think you even mentioned in an interview where you actually went to school for counseling. Yeah,
I did. So, I mean, funny enough, my senior year, I graduated and immediately started touring. So I don't know if I am nearly as sharp as I know I'm not nearly as sharp as I was 10 years ago. But yeah, it's something I've always been really passionate about. And, when all is said and done with my music industry career, if and ever, that's something I would love to continue pursuing.
That's great. Losing Trevor was a huge loss to the metal world, but we're celebrating him here today. Do you care if we play a little bit of Forever Bloom featuring Trevor?
No, go right ahead. Please do.
Let's do it. Straight banger, my man.
Thanks,
Absolute
dude.
banger.
Yeah, this one was fun. It's kind of drawing from like my black metal background there with those big huge chords, and that sort of eerie, whimsical vibe to it.
For me anyway, part of what I like about deathcore is it brings so many elements of metal into one. Is that your appeal to it as well, or at least some of it?
Absolutely. I mean, I was just talking about this with someone actually. It's cool because deathcore is. I feel like you can do anything under the sun in metal, and you can still tie it into being a deathcore band. And I feel like I'm really grateful to have joined this particular band because throughout the discography of Chelsea Grin, they've touched on so much,
Yeah, sure.
And so we're at this point now where I can write anything I want that's metal, and it can wind up on our album, and it's under the umbrella of deathcore. Of course I got to throw some heavy breakdowns and shit like that in there to tie it all in, but it's such an expansive genre. I think it's really fun to have that sort of freedom.
I want to bring up a controversial topic if that's okay.
Yes.
So there's kind of been this, talk in the metal world and just in music in general about venues taking cuts of bands' merch. Have you guys had experiences with that, and what's your thoughts on that?
There's two sides to every coin. Now, like, venues got to make their money too, but bands are struggling and eating shit. And like, there are huge, I think it goes from top to bottom. I mean, huge artists may not struggle the same way, but I still just don't get behind it. I think that the show happens, and again, I don't mean this to sound arrogant, but like, if we don't show up, there is no show. The show is occurring because bands are coming to a town and patronizing these venues to allow for there to be a concert. There's a lot of pieces that come together to create a show. Obviously, there's no show without the venue. There's no show without the fans and whatnot. But at the end of the day, this is us running a business, and we don't like having that money taken from us. A lot of people say like, hey, maybe we should get a cut of the bar sales because everyone who comes to buy a drink at the bar is there because we're here. It's like, why don't we reverse it back a little bit? Whether or not that would ever happen, I don't know, but sure, I can dream.
So while we're on the topic of tours and stuff, you guys have some exciting overseas tours coming up. Your own headlining in Europe, in which has a fucking badass lineup. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah. So it's a co-headliner with us and Carnifex. Our direct support is Body Snatcher, the Invarials, and the Convalescents, and that tour is looking awesome. I mean, shows are already selling out. I know that Carnifex is playing Dead in My Arms as like a sort of anniversary in full, and we're playing our original EP in full.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is something we've never done. So it's going to be a real ripper, that's for sure. When we announced that we were doing the original EP, it became clear to us based on the comments sections that that's something we need to do everywhere for sure. So
yeah.
So that one's going to be a ripper. It's going to be in the dead of winter in Europe, so it's going to be a cold ripper, but it'll be fun. And then we have Australia shortly after that. We're supporting The Art Is Murder with Whitechapel and Spite, and that tour is going to be massive. It's already selling out. It's gonna be a insane time, that's for sure.
Yeah, that one's a pretty short one, right? Only like 5 dates or so.
Yeah, I think it's 5 or 6 shows, and that's sort of the norm for Australia. I mean, the most we've spent out there is 2 weeks, but this one's hitting like all of the major markets. But, it's very spread out there. There's not a lot of, big metropolises for us to hit. So sure. I think we're covering most of the main bases on that.
Where does Chelsea Grin do well at? Europe, Australia? Where do you guys feel you found your groove?
It's an interesting thing because I want to say, like overseas is our strongest market, but we haven't been overseas since prior to the pandemic. And one thing about Europe is that consistency pays off, the more you go. And this seems obvious, but you have to maintain, that hype. The more you go, the more hype you build, but you have to continue going is the pattern that we've noticed out there. So I want to say Europe is one of our best, but I guess we'll find out if that still rings true in a month. But it's interesting. I feel like it's damn near equal everywhere we go. We kind of find the same response anywhere that we're at. I think the States we've really saturated the States, not oversaturated, but this is, our home country. This is where we've played the most. So people here have seen us the most. I think other places that don't have the chance, they really, relish in the opportunity to see a band and support a band whenever they come through. So I think maybe that is part of why overseas is a little bit more banging for us.
This is the Vulgar Display, a podcast. We are live from the Barn Studio. We have Steven from Chelsea Grin, and we're going to be catching that new album, Suffer in Hell, out 11/11. Get your singles now, Origin of Sin. And now help us with this pronunciation on this other one. Isness?
The Isness, yes.
The Isness, yes. And Forever Bloom. We appreciate your time today, Steven.
Yeah, of course. Again, I appreciate it. It's always fun.